Cameron stepped into 1990 with mixed feelings. He faced the sting of his first major flop with The Abyss. It was a brilliant film, but in Hollywood, brilliance is measured in box office returns.
Witness! Shut up, what's wrong with you?
Yet, he also had cause for optimism. He founded Lightstorm Entertainment, his own studio named after the lighting that heralds the Terminator's arrival. Plus, he started a new relationship. Even before his divorce from Gail Hurd was final, he got involved with a woman who seemed to embody the heroines of his movies. Kathryn Bigelow, a young director brimming with strength and boldness, caught his eye. He highlighted it thanks to Bill Paxton, an old friend and collaborator, who asked Cameron to direct a music video for his band featuring Kathryn in a female version of Clint Eastwood. After finishing The Abyss, Cameron married Kathryn and, true to his nature, immediately intertwined his personal and professional life. This time he took on the role of producer, helping Kathryn secure funding for a lackluster action script titled Johnny Utah. They rewrote the script together, transforming it into a much darker action film. This collaboration marked the beginning of their disagreements. Cameron couldn't fathom why Kathryn insisted on casting the goofy guy from Bill and Ted for the lead role.
No way.
Yes way, Ted!
She saw an action star in the scruffy, smiling actor. Once they cut his hair and paired him with Patrick Swayze, Bigelow ended up with one of the most surprising summer blockbusters, which later gained cult status.
The ex-presidents rip off banks to finance their endless summer.
Cameron didn't bask in his partner's success for long. Two producers, Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna, were keen to help him make a grand return. After the success of 3 Rambo films, their company was quickly taking over Hollywood, throwing money around and snapping up talent.
To make the deal with Hamdale, I said to John Daly, would you sell me your Terminator rights? He said, well, if you give me $10 million, I would. I said, I will write you a check now.
Easy money. Come on.
Mario Kassar called me up and said, all right, we got the rights to Terminator 2. Our first choice is for you to direct it. And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, we'll pay you $6 million. I said, okay. That's pretty much how it went.
Wanting a sequel that would rival the original, they approached Cameron with a record-breaking promise to invest over $100 million in the project.
It's like going to a restaurant and you either order a great meal that costs you a lot of money, but it's worth eating it, or you go to have a hamburger for $2. I mean, it's your choice.
The catch? He had to finish the film by early July 1991 to hit the summer blockbuster season. Cameron jumped at the opportunity, especially since he already had a dusty idea for the sequel in his archives. In the original script for the Terminator, the T-800 was supposed to be killed midway through, with a liquid metal Terminator sent back in time afterwards. Cameron had initially shelved this expensive idea, thinking no one would fund such a costly venture from a newcomer. But now, with an almost unlimited budget and groundbreaking CGI from ILM, Cameron reunited with his old friend Will Wisher.
Jim called me up one day and he said, it's good news and some bad news. And I said, what's that? He says, well, the good news is we're going to make Terminator 2. And the bad news is we're already behind schedule.
They dove into the sequel script, designing future challenges for ILM and Stan Winston's team. The more complex the scenes, the more Cameron's imagination soared.
What if you did this? Oh yeah, well, what if you did that? Yeah, we could. This would be even better. It's boom, boom, boom. You get to that great idea.
But the question was, can we hang the whole movie on a soft surface character with CG?
Jim would say, oh, geez, I better call ILM and see if they can do this.
And I said, Dennis, can we do this? He said, yeah, we can do it. He had no idea how to do it.
He showed the finished script to the producers on a flight to Cannes, where they planned to announce the sequel.
There's only one flaw. I'm still writing at my house while everybody's showing up at the plane. And I remember literally pulling the script out of the printer and racing to the airport and getting there like 20 minutes late.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was also on that flight. Cameron had convinced him to reprise his role almost immediately.
I hand it to Arnold, say happy reading, you know, and then I go straight to sleep.
My first thought was, bullshit.
After his iconic turn as the ruthless machine, Arnold hadn't slowed down, solidifying his action hero status in Predator, The Running Man, and Total Recall, and commanding over $10 million for the sequel.
Excellent.
Even that hefty sum didn't fully ease his concerns. Arnold worried that turning the T-800 into a good guy might tarnish his original character. He even asked Cameron to have the T-800 kill a couple of people before meeting John. But the director stood firm.
Now you're the good guy, you're the defender, you're the protector. He said, okay, all right. Can I shoot him in the leg? I said, yeah, let's just shoot him in the leg. How's that? He goes, well, that's good.
He'll live.
Linda Hamilton didn't think twice about coming back for the sequel. Cameron caught her attention with a simple plot. Sarah Connor, almost a machine herself now, must protect her son while being locked up in a mental hospital. To prepare, Linda trained for 4 months with a retired Israeli commando.
So I put her with a guy named Uzi Gal, now acting as a trainer.
The idea is that we don't look at that as a movie. We look at this as a mission. You have to think like the character that you're going to be. Either it's your first nature or you're not going to do it. It's got to be your instinct.
He was very experienced. He knew exactly how to train her, how to run and how to climb and how to do fighting scenes.
And he taught her weapons handling.
It was really like entering the military and learning the mindset and coming up against myself.
When she finished with him and she went out for her first day of actual live firing, she put the magazine in, charged it, put 8 rounds right through the center mass of the target.
Magazine!
Very nice. And the grips were pretty good, about like that. And she had never fired a gun in her life.
She was 100% there, and she was very determined to learn and was very much into it.
Out of the car! Right now!
A few days before we start shooting, Jim Cameron says to me, let's all get together and have a nice dinner. Linda comes in and she takes her sweater off, and I'm looking at her arms, veins on the biceps. Everything was like a bodybuilder except miniature.
I do remember the fierce pride that I had to show to Arnold.
There isn't a higher compliment than praise from the Terminator himself.
I said, I can't believe that son of a bitch is fucking more cut than me.
But it was Cameron who was most taken with Hamilton. Their romance blossomed during filming, though they denied it fiercely at first. They only came clean after the movie was released and Cameron had divorced Catherine Bigelow.
I bet.
Casting John Connor was the toughest challenge. The search spanned the entire country with hundreds of boys auditioning. Edward Furlong, however, was found right on the street. Casting agent Mally Finn, then a rising talent scout, snapped his picture and brought him in for an audition. That single Polaroid secured Mally's place in every Cameron film thereafter.
She literally just went out to find raw, untried talent. His auditions were very rocky. He was completely untrained. But I kept seeing something when I'd zoom way in on him with the video camera.
Eddie had everything the script needed. Like his character, he grew up without a father and was apart from his mother.
Come on, get your ass inside. Do what your mother tells you.
She's not my mother, Todd.
Cameron wasn't impressed at first and continued searching, but Finn hired a speech coach for Furlong and brought him back for another reading a few weeks later.
She came over to my house and she said, Jim almost wrote you off the list, but, you know, I had another chance, and I took it very seriously, and I just went balls to the wall.
This time, Eddie nailed it. He cried on cue, sassed back convincingly, and maintained unbroken eye contact with Cameron.
What's wrong with your eyes?
Nothing. And Jim said, Eddie, don't tell anybody, but we picked you for this film. And I felt like hugging Jim, but he's a guy, so I didn't hug him.
Why?
What do you mean why? 'Cause you can't.
Why?
Because you just can't, okay? Trust me on this.
Then there was the liquid Terminator.
Heroes are measured against the villain. So how are you going to have something that's scarier, deadlier than Arnold as a T-800 Terminator?
Well, I wanted to find someone who would be a good contrast to Arnold. If the 800 series is a kind of human Panzer tank, then the 1000 series had to be a Porsche.
Initially, he didn't even know what the character would look like. Stan Winston, who worked on the effects, couldn't grasp how the villain could be just a liquid mass and urged Cameron to give the antagonist a solid form. That's when Cameron had a revelation. The Terminator should be a cop. Who could be more terrifying in early 90s Los Angeles than a police officer? This wasn't a joke, it was a sharp psychological insight. Cops embodied power and a lack of empathy. Cameron initially saw Billy Idol in this role. Early sketches depicted Idol in a police uniform. Cameron even reached out to Idol's agents, but a broken leg from an accident ruled him out. This misfortune paved the way for Robert Patrick, who landed the most iconic role of his career.
If you think about it, if the way to be introduced to the world is as a Terminator, kicking the shit out of Arnold Schwarzenegger, tell me another role that's as cool as that.
Before meeting Cameron, Patrick had played a few villains in Roger Corman's films and had a role as a terrorist in the sequel to Die Hard.
Hey, asshole, what do I look like to you? A sitting duck.
But it was the T-1000 that would forever change his life. With a few lines and a cold, emotionless stare, Patrick's portrayal sent chills down the spines of generations of fans of this future classic.
The thing I like about Robert was he kind of looks like a cat. It's almost like it's about senses with him. You know, you feel that he's very in touch with the world and analyzing it and observing it.
I invented the process right there. I showed them what the T-1000 would look like.
There was a zen calm about him, and that calm made him scary.
Damn, you all right?
Robert created something pretty amazing.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Patrick really threw himself into preparing for his role. He even mastered the art of running while breathing only through his nose, aiming to look more robotic. Patrick became so adept at this technique that he once ruined a take.
We had a shot where Eddie was on the motorcycle that was being pulled by the insert car. Jack Carpenter, the insert car driver. I said, no, he's not going to catch us. I said, he's going to catch us.
First time we did the run, I caught the kid. How fast you running? I had no idea.
I said, okay, we can't use that take. John Connor just died and the world just ended.
Yet what cemented Patrick's place in cinematic history wasn't his speed, but the behind-the-scenes work of countless artists.
They only had 9 months, which was really the scary part. To do these really complicated shots, they had to create the new technology, then they had to apply it and get it done on a schedule.
James Cameron brought together two powerhouse teams to create the film's groundbreaking special effects. Visual effects fell to ILM under Dennis Muren, while Stan Winston handled practical effects.
It was a constant, little juggling act in the very beginning to figure out what was going to be done optically, what was going to be done as a real-life effect, and then what things from us would be needed for ILM to help them work things out optically, and vice versa. And it was, it just worked out as perfect as it possibly could have.
Stan Winston would start the effect, the CG would do the hard part, let's say one of the shotgun wounds healing or a head changing geometry in some way that a physical puppet couldn't do. And then he would carry on after that, where we had various types of rubber suits that had been vacuum metallized so that they were reflective as if they were liquid metal, and in quick cuts we got away with it.
Although ILM had tested efforts for the T-1000's morphing during The Abyss and Ron Howard's Willow, Terminator 2 posed a fresh challenge. They made an exact replica of Patrick, scanning him with a large laser over 3 days.
Robert was great. He came up to ILM in San Francisco before we started the show. He was a great sport, and whatever crazy thing we asked him to do, he did it.
I'm sitting in a chair, like this, and I've got to stay totally controlled, hit this emotion, and lock on this expression, like, ah.
We got Robert, and he was up here, and we painted a grid on him and shot a lot of footage of him, and we could see how the grid moved as his muscles moved and his bodies moved around.
And we sort of decided to concentrate on the Robert Patrick form, because Robert is the T-1000. We decided we're going to study his body, we're going to find a way to capture his quality, and that was for us was going to be the key that drove our visual approach to the whole T-1000.
They wanted to know, how did I think that I would come up out of the floor? So I remember them putting like a Mylar blanket over the top of me and coming up, almost like a flower, and just
The standout shot featured the liquid Terminator emerging from the fire. It was filmed twice, once with the actor and once without. The operator had to replicate the exact movements each time, succeeding only after 20 takes. But the effort paid off. The sparks reflections on the T-1000's body showcased the future of this technique.
No cut. It's impossible. You've never seen it.
For the scene where the T-1000 melts into the floor, they created a utility called Make Sticky, which allowed flat images to adhere to 3D models and deform accurately for reflection mapping. They also crafted the scene where the T-1000 slips through metal bars, overlaying the digital model onto Robert Patrick himself and switching seamlessly between the real and digital actor.
Then the gun doesn't go through. To remind you that it's something special.
For the scene where the T-1000 flows into the helicopter cabin, they simply reconfigured the software used in the Abyss.
Get out.
Beyond the T-1000, ILM handled color correction, removed wires, added lightning and laser beams, and even cleaned the film negatives of physical damage.
Thanks for your cooperation.
You know, for all the credit we give to the digital wizards, the real magic came from blending those effects with practical ones.
And action.
Take the bullet holes on Patrick, for instance. Those were made with rubber gadgets triggered by tiny explosions and springs, all hidden under his clothes. This setup, dubbed the bullet hit shirt, was later enhanced by CGI to make the wounds heal. Then there were the T-1000's injuries. Winston's team created a bunch of creepy puppets for different stages of his damage. Remember the donut head? The splash head and the bisected one? Those things probably gave anyone visiting the workshop nightmares. And Arnold had his own set of puppets too.
Okay, you don't get paid, so what? I make it for you, okay? So relax.
The highlight being the bust used in the scene where they take out the processor.
Do it.
You probably know it, but there was no actual mirror in that scene. Linda Hamilton's twin sister stood in as Sarah's back, while the puppet doubled for Arnold. The actors practiced this bit for over 2 weeks to get the timing just right. And speaking of iconic scenes, there's the one where T-800 gets shot. To take all these shots, they created a life-sized puppet operated by 2 off-screen technicians.
For this, consider the fact that it's going to be good shots. It'll only be on pistol.
They also reused a trick from the first movie where Arnold peels the skin off his robotic hand, which was attached to his shoulder. In the initial shot, he cut his real arm with a hollow knife, complete with fake blood. And speaking about makeup, it played a big role too, especially for Arnold. For the last part of the film, he spent up to 5 hours in a makeup chair every day.
I don't know how much longer I can take this.
He doesn't complain?
All right. But I need my foot massages. I'm too handsome. No camera can take all these good looks. So what they do in every movie basically is they put appliances on to kind of tone my looks down a little bit, so I match up to the rest of the actors in the movie. All right.
Wow! 2.5, 3 hours and he's done. The next stage for the makeup, it's basically the same that Arnold had before, just more chrome, more appliances. He'll have his eye plugged up so he won't be able to see out of it. And it'll take probably an hour, hour and a half longer to put on. He's gonna love it.
Holy shit.
I need a vacation.
But let's return to the T-1000, specifically the iconic Hasta la Vista shot. Winston created a detailed fiberglass model filled with metallic flakes and urethane foam shards. The first attempt to blow it up flopped due to smoke clouds ruining the shot. Cameron then placed 2 powerful fans above the model to clear the smoke. The second attempt? Perfect.
Hasta la vista, baby.
After this, the liquid metal reassembles. For these scenes, Cameron's old friends Robert and Dennis Skotak handled the close-ups. They first dissolved pieces of lightweight metal and then replaced them with mercury, merging it together. Due to mercury's toxicity, only Robert handled it, despite the final shot taking just a few takes. He ended up in the hospital with mercury poisoning.
The need for having mercury doing something that it doesn't want to do were among the most frustrating things to have to shoot.
The Skotak brothers also handled the miniature nuclear explosion. Their work impressed even federal nuclear weapons testing lab experts who called it the most realistic on-screen nuke, a title that Christopher Nolan would claim only 3 decades later. The wide shot was a combination of early particle generators and hand-drawn city images, while the close-ups were the Skotak's work.
We found ourselves having to come up with materials for the insides of the building that could be mass-produced and assembled crudely but visually effectively. We found that matzo crackers were in the right scale for rooms. They had the little segment lines so we could break them up and glue them in, and they were cheap. We had balsa wood chunks, plaster pieces. We also found that various types of cereals like shredded wheat and cornflakes were spray painted because, again, that looks like broken masonry. Facing across from the miniature buildings about 9 feet away was a row of air cannons and several Ritters and E-fans. We found ourselves augmenting all of these with upwards of 25 or 30 cables attached to the back of the set. All these wires also pull the model apart internally. In addition, we layered in several exposures of particles blown across the frame with an air cannon.
We essentially did 3 cameras photographing the entire setup at once. It was either 8 or 9 times that we did those.
Winston's team crafted and burned dolls, using pneumatic guns to tear the skin off of Sarah. Stan admitted that even he felt creeped out during these shoots, which says something when coming from a man who created this, and this.
It was very unsettling. And it was the one time when you got a little uncomfortable because it wasn't pleasant to look at while you were shooting it. But it is the important aspect of the film.
We've talked a lot about the pre-planned scenes, but even without those, the movie had its share of epic moments. Take the prologue, for example. It showcased the future war in all of its terrifying glory with real, controllable T-800 models marching across the screen.
It's the same endoskeleton, but it's much more technically advanced than the endoskeleton in the first movie. It's actually artistically advanced, so they can do more. There's more life to these endoskeletons.
They paid homage to the first film by using old-school stop-motion animation for the background machines. The foreground, though, was where the magic happened. One T-800 had a spike in its foot designed to crush a skull on contact. Knowing Cameron's penchant for multiple takes, Winston's team molded 28 wax skulls for this shot. By 3 a.m., after the 26th take, a frustrated Cameron called it a night. The team braced for a meltdown tomorrow when the skulls ran out. To everyone's relief, the next morning, Cameron declared that take 5 was perfect. Phew!
It looks pretty spectacular.
Then there's the legendary arrival scene from the future. For this, they used 2 identical trailers. In the first part of the shot, they used a normal trailer. Then they stopped the camera, switched to a trailer with a section cut out, and dug a hole in the asphalt. The first major action scene? Oh, you know, just a casual chase through the valley flood channels packed with dozens of dangerous stunts.
I had a specific image for that sequence, which was you're a rat in a maze and you can't get out. And if you've ever been in one of those drainage systems, once you're in, you're kind of stuck there for a long time.
Fun fact, the truck's roof wasn't originally supposed to be a convertible. But despite meticulous planning, no one had measured the height of the overpass above the channel. So Cameron, being the mad genius he is, decided to improvise. Another memorable moment, the shootout with police cars. Picture this: a pyrotechnic symphony that ends with a building explosion. Surprisingly, this wasn't a miniature, but a real explosion, which left the structure mostly intact. The secret lay in directing hundreds of liters of gasoline and barrels of powder to detonate through the windows.
Were we supposed to roll? That was a rehearsal. I was waiting for your cue, Jim.
Then came the highway chase, the film's most intense and challenging sequence to execute. For this scene, the team rented 5 miles of road in San Pedro, California, setting up props and lighting for a night shoot. Just when you think nothing can go wrong, someone decides to steal all the cables from the set. Enter producer Stephanie Austin, who found replacement cables faster than you can say "hasta la vista, baby."
That's 5 miles of highway that they had to light. In order to do that, they had to rent pretty much every piece of lighting equipment Hollywood had.
There was no more cable available in Hollywood because we took all the cables.
Her reward? A badge with her name, Austin, on the T-1000's chest. Yet problems persisted. Midway through filming, Cameron realized the liquid Terminator didn't have enough hands to pilot the helicopter and reload his gun simultaneously. He called Winston's team in the middle of the night, and they crafted a 4-armed costume from available materials on their way to the set. But wait, there's more. The helicopter pilot, a Vietnam War vet, handled the stunts like a pro, but the cameraman, not so much. Too scared to shoot the scene where the helicopter flies under an overpass, he handed the camera to Cameron, who filmed the scene twice himself, one take in front of and one behind the helicopter. The grand finale took place at a rented factory. The star prop of the scene, molten metal, was actually a mix of dramatic lighting, a translucent material called Metasil, smoke, and pyrotechnics. While Cameron managed to include almost everything he envisioned in the movie, there was one concept he had to drop: the time machine hidden deep in Skynet. But don't worry, those sketches didn't gather dust. They made a cameo in the film Contact 5 years later. Even after filming wrapped, Cameron had an incredible task ahead. He had 300 kilometers of film, hundreds of hours of footage that needed to be condensed into a feature-length movie. In the end, less than 1% of the material made it into the theatrical release. Dozens of scenes were left on the cutting room floor.
There's not much time left in the world, Sarah.
One of the things I always feel strongly about in a sequel is that it shouldn't require you to have seen the first film. It should be self-contained.
You're strong, Sarah. Stronger than you ever thought you could be. On your feet, soldier.
It didn't surprise me that this didn't make the cut, because you've only got so much movie, and it's not part of the storytelling. It's more of like, well, remember this.
From a vision that showed Sarah Connor's sensitive side to numerous episodes featuring the T-1000. Honestly, those T-1000 scenes were better off cut. In the director's cut, Robert Patrick's character mimics human emotions too much, which makes him less scary.
Do you have a photograph of John?
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
Another crucial part of post-production was sound design. All the pricey effects by ILM and Winston Studio got a major boost from Gary Rydstrom's creativity.
Sounds that seem organic and real, but they're bigger than anything you've heard before. It's sound effects with a lot of testosterone. Different layers are chosen for being exactly the right sound for that layer. So there's a lot of details that go into making something that you then believe has been recorded on the set.
The shape-shifting sound, that was dog food falling out of a can.
The ILM effect, which is brilliant, I don't know what it costs, but a lot. And the sound effect is about 35 cents.
Even more amusing is that Gary, along with the visual effects wizards, snagged an Oscar for the film. But that came later. First, Terminator 2 hit theaters on the planned weekend right before the 4th of July and raked in over $30 million. More than half of all tickets sold that weekend were for James's new film. Soon, T2 would gross over $500 million worldwide and make untold amounts from VHS sales and merchandise.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Once again, Cameron built on the success of the first film. Just like with Aliens, he expanded the fan base without upsetting the original's devotees.
So we took a shot at it, and we are very delighted that everyone, if it is the critics or the people that have seen it, think it is better than the first one. So that's what we want to do, is entertain people all over the world.
What did anger fans, though, were the endless sequels that squeezed every last cent from the franchise's most loyal followers.
I came from a future like that. It failed.
It's worth mentioning, though, that Cameron himself was the first to toy with the story when he released a 12-minute sequel titled T2 3D, Battle Across Time, in 1996.
So you're going to see a step in the evolution of the story and of the characters in T2 Battle Across Time, which may be finished in the third film.
This 3D attraction, created exclusively for theme parks, was designed to showcase the potential of 3D before it became a big thing. The production cost a record $60 million, though today it looks, to put it mildly, quite cringy. The plot involves John going to the future to destroy Skynet's main computer. The presentation is a mix of live action and filmed material with actors on stage playing the main characters, while their close-ups are shown on screens featuring recorded performances by Hamilton, Schwarzenegger, and Furlong.
Whoa, where are we?
The future. Final battle between humans and machines.
The show also included real moving models of cyborgs powered by hydraulic systems. As a theme park attraction, it was amusing, but it also certainly was nothing more than an attempt to cash in on the film's success.
Easy money.
But let's go back to 1991, when a tired of epic ideas Cameron decided to take on a smaller project, something simpler and more personal. Of course, when it comes to James, even a personal project isn't complete without an airplane on the roof of a skyscraper.
Stay here. I'll be back.
With more content, but only if you like, subscribe, and comment below.